Look away, 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 look away.
Hey guys, it's Cameron, my review for a series of unfortunate events, Season 1, Episode 5, The Wide Window, Part 1, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode, because as you guys know, I've really been enjoying the show, and especially because so far at least, every chapter seems to have its own significant feel, its own sort of story, and that's something I was definitely getting interested in, what was this story really going to be like, what was the tone going to be here, and I will say this episode was good, it really was good, but it is my least favorite episode so far. It's very exposition heavy, it very much felt incomplete, and that's because it's part 1. I think it's the most part 1 out of all the episodes so far. Reptile Room, that stood out as its own, episode of, more like, hope and things like that. Did a good job with that story, and I think even the bad beginning was a very good setup to, what we got with the show. The Wide Window, however, feels more like it's, introducing us to the story rather than actually showing us what the story is really going to be like, which isn't necessarily bad. This was not at all a bad episode. I just felt because of how great the past 4 episodes have been, this one was lacking a little bit, but I did find it overall very interesting, and what I did like was how, once again, just like the Reptile Room, they did try to change things up here. In fact, immediately, we see something completely different than we've seen in any other episode. I don't think we've ever seen this. We see the Lacrimose News. The newscasters are reporting on the Baudelaire orphans. We see that actually they are being newscasted on, and that makes sense. I mean, if there was an actual story like this going on, most likely they would be followed, and the orphans, again, they would be publicized as these rich kids, and that's something the show hasn't focused a ton on. We know they did in the first 2 episodes, but ever since episode 2, the show's kind of fade away from it. So it was kind of cool to see that come back into the limelight a little bit. I definitely did enjoy that, but Poe takes the children to Democles' dock and gives them his phone number so they can reach him, and until then, they're taking it there to take a taxi to their Aunt Josephine's house, I like the way they set up her character here. We don't really know what's going to happen, but she says she couldn't come to the dock, and Poe gives the children peppermints to turn things around, so Poe gives them the taxi fee and leaves on the ferry, and a taxi pulls up, and the driver then takes them to Josephine's house, talks about how Hurricane Herman will soon arrive, and I did like the way that they set up this threat of Hurricane Herman. You know Hurricane Herman's going to come soon, you don't really know what's going to happen there, but then we get to see something that I'm actually very happy we saw, which was seeing Count Olaf a lot more in this episode, as Count Olaf, which in Reptile Room was something that we really didn't get to see. We actually get to see Count Olaf and his theater troupe journey to Lake Lacrimose. I really did enjoy seeing that. He's rowing to Lake Lacrimose, so now we're starting to see how they got there, how they followed them. I like the way that was done. So the drivers drop off the Baudelaires. They're off at Aunt Josephine's house on the cliff, and drives off, and the children go to the door, and they find a plaque saying, "Please go away." The doorbell doesn't work, and Josephine is extremely petrified immediately. You can just tell she has this fear throughout the entire episode, and she opens the door, tells them not to knock, and is literally afraid of the door. I mean, this is a pretty insane storyline, but they did a really good job of showing us who Josephine is, and that's something that I will admit is the best aspect of this episode, is really getting us to learn more about Aunt Josephine. They do a very good job with that in this first episode. So she then welcomes the Baudelaires and explains that she disconnected the doorbell because of the danger of electrocution, and she says that they'll all find their answers in her library, with a wide window providing a view of the lake, hence the name Wide Window, but that's not why the episode's called Wide Window, and she couldn't meet the Baudelaires in the dock because she's too haunted by the past. We found that her husband, Ike, could actually whistle with crackers in her mouth, just like the children's mother, and they gathered on the shores for picnics to develop secret codes. Ike went into the lake and was eaten by Lacrimose leeches, and when they smell blood in a human, they swarm, eat their victims. So again, they're setting up this idea of the leeches pretty well. I like the way that was done. And Josephine briefly breaks into tears. She explains that she devoted her entire life to the study of grammar since losing Ike, and she's going to teach children everything they need to know about grammar, even though she admits that it has nothing to do with secret codes, and I like the way we're starting to see, that she's tied to this secret organization. We don't know what it's all about, but we know that she's tied to it, and first, Josephine serves chilled cucumber soup for dinner, not for dinner, for lunch, and she refuses to talk about the past. She figures the safest strategy is to be afraid of everything and think of happier things, and that's why, she feels that the best way to do that is just to, live in constant fear, and that's something that obviously, you can't do. You can't just live in fear, but that's something that Aunt Josephine has basically forced herself to do, and Klaus suggested she move away from the lake, and then she'd feel more comfortable enough to discuss the past, but Josephine explains that she won't sell the house because she's afraid of real estate agents. Literally, this woman is afraid of everything, and they said that trait very well on her. It's honestly very funny to see her freaking out over the slightest thing. I mean, it is definitely pretty funny, but we then meet Larry, the owner of the Anxious Clown restaurant, and he's cleaning up outside his shop when Olaf arrives. He recognizes Count Olaf and is surprised to see him. He explains that the restaurant's under new management, and Larry says that the bowlers are safe and sound and learning everything about their organization, even though their training should have begun years ago. So the two men struggle over Larry's broom. You get the sense these two do in fact know each other. They might even possibly be working together. We don't really know. But Olaf vows that the children will be destroyed. He's going to take the fortune, and the broom breaks. Larry falls to the streets, and a lot of people have said that Olaf has been overtly comical and that he hasn't really gotten to show a lot of menace. This was one of those moments. I mean, that's what I love about the character, is that when Neil Patrick Harris does such a great job with providing so much humor for that character, that when he truly does get into that dark, menacing personality, it's terrifying. I mean, he does a really great job. This is not a guy you want to mess with at all. He vows that Josephine and the children will stop Olaf and the troops surround the men. So he obviously knows that Olaf is up to no good, and I really did like that direction. I like that Larry, was fearful of Count Olaf. I really did like that overall. They did a very good job with setting all that up. And again, very well sets us up for, what's in store. I definitely really did like the way that was done. So Josephine gives Violet a doll, Klaus a doll, and Sunny a rattle. So the children then thank her, and Josephine assures them that their safety is her greatest responsibility. Klaus asks about Hurricane Herman because, they just heard about it, and Josephine finally agrees to have them stay while she goes into town to get supplies. So again, she's dodging pretty much all of their questions, and it is a bit frustrating, definitely. It's a bit frustrating because you want to get those answers. You want to know what's going on. Luckily, the episode does give us some of those answers, and once she leaves, the children then cook hot food. They figure that Josephine means well, and yeah, I mean, obviously, she's not living the best life, and she's not really doing the best thing, and she's not providing for them the best way she possibly could, but she is trying to help them, and I like that they, again, try to see the good in her. So they go to the library where Josephine has a safe. Klaus figures that there are books inside, and the children try to work out the three-letter combination. Sunny suggests Ike, and the numbers that correspond to the letters are the combination, and inside the safe are crackers and Ike's whistling music. So there are photos of Josephine doing many fearful things, showing that she really wasn't scared of anything, that she lived her entire life without fear. So that might make sense why she's so fearful now, because she's realized that there is, definitely consequences to what can happen. And finally, there's a book called The Incomplete History of Secret Organizations. Now, if you remember, this is the same book that Justice Strauss obtained in the second episode, when she was going through her library and was trying to get a book about, I believe it was about lawyer, but then found this book. She has that book as well. So somehow that's going to come back into play. I definitely think we're going to see Justice Strauss again by the end of the season, because this is not just a coincidence. There's a reason why they're showing this book, and again, I love the way that Klaus and Violet and, Sunny, they're learning this stuff on their own. They don't need anyone to do this for them. It just shows their intelligence, and I really did like that. And Josephine returns. The children put everything back in the safe before she comes in. She found limes at the market and petting zoo and something else, and Josephine says that she was once fearless, and her and the bowler parents were adventurers and volunteers, and she realizes she can't be terrified forever and is ready to be fierce and formidable again. She doesn't want to just be terrified. She needs to do something with her life, and she wants to do it together. So Josephine then explains that she met a man, and he wants to take her out for a fried egg sandwich, which is, kind of weird, and she insists it isn't a date necessarily, but just two adults sharing quality time. So Josephine has the children make small talk with a man who is Captain Julio Sham, who once again is Count Olaf, of course, in disguise. This is a disguise throughout the episode, And I will admit this was a little bit more convincing. Like, he definitely was a little bit less obvious in this sense. Like, you definitely did get the sense that this maybe couldn't be Count Olaf, but of course, you know, we know it's Count Olaf, we know what he's up to, and he comes disguised as a sea captain. The children immediately realize who he is, and, you know, they just know that this is gonna happen. You know, they know by the voice, they know by the demeanor, they know what Count Olaf looks like at this point. You know, they've had enough altercations with him before, so Josephine doesn't believe it and points out that he doesn't have a left ankle because he has a wooden peg instead. So there's no way they can prove that he has a tattoo on his ankle, which I did think was quite clever the way that was done. We then cut to a few hours ago where Josephine and Captain Sham meet, and she makes her way through town. The troop walk by and talk up the incredibly handsome Captain Sham. The disguised Olaf then joins Josephine as she buys limes and introduces himself as Captain Sham. He explains that the leeches took his left leg with a helpful course from his troop, and nobody understands him. Josephine says the same thing happened to her husband, and admits that she has also been lonely, and Olaf then plays along with Josephine's paranoia, but Josephine complains when she sees the grammatical error on his business card, and again, very funny recurring joke with a grammatical error, but he invites her on a cruise through leech-infested waters, but Josephine refuses after what happened to Ike, and Olaf invites her to have fried egg sandwiches instead. So you can see how he recruited her, you can see how he took her under his wing, and how he basically was able to get into her head and get her to do whatever the hell he wanted her to do. So he's sure the boat layers are obedient, little that will eventually let them take them on a boat ride. Once Josephine goes to get her cardigan, Klaus warns Olaf that he'll never get away with it, and that, you know, he got away with it once, he's not getting away with it again. So he closes in on them. He reminds them how Monty and their parents died, and again, just from him saying that, I have this feeling he was behind their parents' murder. I know I've said that there's no possible way. I've dodged that theory before, but now it's starting to come back. The way that Olaf keeps mentioning their parents is not just like he knew them, it's like he was the cause of their death. Now, I don't know if he set the fire. I don't know if Count Olaf is that evil that he'd set the fire. I do, in fact, think that he had something to do with, you know, whatever caused their death. Whatever happened there, he definitely had something to do with that, and whether it was like putting lighter fluid in or something, I don't really know. He definitely was the cause of, well, I guess their fake death because we know they're alive. But before Olaf can strike, Josephine returns. Olaf yells a warning about the lit candles. He blows them out, and obviously Josephine's freaking out because she's terrified of fire and claims that the Baudelaires tried to burn the house down. Josephine tells the children to clean up and go to bed and leaves with Olaf. So they then look at a map of the town but discover there's a half-dozen egg restaurants within driving distance, so it really could be any fried egg sandwich. So they hope the taxi driver can tell them where he took Josephine, but as they go inside, the troop pulls up in their car. They tell the children to go back inside and then realize that no one is guarding Larry, and we get kind of a similar scene to what we got with Jacqueline. He tries to get to the phone, but the chair he's tied to falls over, and unlike Jacqueline, he's a little bit more helpless. I mean, he's not someone who's just going to pull himself out of the situation. He's just kind of helpless. He can't really do much of anything, and I was a little bit disappointed with what they did with Larry. I didn't really know why this was necessary, but this was kind of cool to see the kids interact with the henchmen and them act completely in denial about what's going on. But the bowlers go back inside. They go to the wide window overlooking the lake. Violet comes up with a way to climb down, but Klaus wonders what they'll do next, and he figures out there's nowhere safe for them. But Violet says they have to protect Josephine themselves, so Klaus starts going through the books while Violet works on a ladder made of fishnets. And as the taxi goes to the restaurant, Olaf sings sea shanties, and Josephine worries about the children. So now she's starting to get some fear about what's going on. And we then go to Peru, where Father is decoding a coded message while Mother works out a flight plan now that we know they've, made these secret codes. And the message warns that they may be too late, and the lane has bullet holes in the wing. So they're doing what they can to get out of there. Obviously, they want to get out of prison, and they're trying to get on the plane. So the bowlers are in their room when they hear the window glass shatter. They go to investigate and find a Josephine-shaped hole in the wall. There's a suicide note left to the children, and basically they're left to believe that she went crazy and threw herself out the window. However, we then see Lemony. He stands among the ruins of the house and tells the viewers that Josephine is not dead at all, at least not yet. And that is the way this episode ends. Let's just get in this episode and where I think we're going to go from here. So overall, not a bad episode. I definitely will say that. But compared to the first 4 episodes, This one was a bit lacking, and that's not to say it wasn't good. First of all, I will definitely talk about the good. Alfre Woodard was something I was definitely looking forward to. I loved her in Luke Cage. I think she's a fantastic actress. I don't think she's gotten enough work, so I was very happy to see her in this show. I thought that she was very good at Aunt Josephine. She really did do a good job of playing into that fear, but also playing into that proper type of woman Aunt Josephine is. I mean, the recurring joke of her obsessed with grammar. I mean, this is a woman who is fixated on grammar and kind of uses that to mask her own tragedy and kind of ignore how her tragedy's been because, you know, what she's been through, and I thought they did a really good job with setting up her character, but it was kind of stagnant. I definitely will say that. I feel like they definitely did do a good job of setting up her character. They just didn't really do a ton with it. They told us her husband died, you know, they told us that she has this, you know, obsession with grammar, but unlike Monty, this just felt like a character that was there to explain things. Now, this was just a character that was there to, you know, get the children to start learning things. It just didn't feel like she really had much to do here. I mean, definitely Alfre Woodard did a good job. I just don't really know if this role suited her very well. I feel like she is a great actress, but she may be too good of an actress. We could have had any actress really play her role, and it really does suck because Alfre Woodard is so great in this show, because she really is great. She's a great actress, and she did a really good job here. It just, out of everyone, she definitely is the least memorable part of this episode, and it kind of does suck when Aunt Josephine is is definitely really compelling character. I like the direction that they went with her, and I do like the way this episode hinted at more going on, you know, with this secret organization. We know definitely Monty was tied to it, Jacqueline was tied to it, you know, Gustav, he was tied to it, and now we know that Aunt Josephine was tied to it, as well as her husband. So there's definitely a lot going on with that secret organization. That's something I'm definitely interested in getting into, and I'm actually not upset that Lemony told us that, you know, this isn't it for Aunt Josephine. I like that we know that she's still alive, because if they would have killed her off in this episode, I would have been severely pissed. I mean, they did not do nearly enough with her. She was in the episode, but I just didn't feel like she had a lot to do, and I feel like definitely it was a bit slow with the way they did her character. And, you know, I haven't thought of this show as slow, but I'm not gonna lie, there were some things that kind of bored me in this episode. I thought the episode was a bit slower. It wasn't as funny. Not all the jokes really hit. I mean, there's only so much you can do with the incorrect use of grammar. I get that that's her thing, but I just found some of that to be a little bit annoying. I definitely will say that, and it just, the feel of the episode, it was definitely there. It felt, you know, it still had that confident energy that the rest of the episodes have had, but I just wasn't really feeling it as much as I was with other episodes. But the stuff that's in this episode that's great is still great. You know, I love seeing Count Olaf as Captain Sham. You know, again, you can see again, he's not that great of an actor, but he's doing everything he can to try to channel this other character. And Neil Patrick Harris does an incredible job with embodying that. It's really not easy to play a character playing a different character, but he pulls it off perfectly. He's got all the imperfections of Count Olaf as an actor, all the flaws he has, all the times he breaks character. I mean, there's so much great stuff going on with him, and I love the way that he is performing this role. He really is, in my opinion, the star of this show, and, you know, he deserves to be the star. I mean, everyone has said how great he is, and he really is fantastic. I love what he has been doing on the show. He has really been adding a lot to it, and I can't wait to see what else he's going to do here, because he really was fantastic in this episode. I love what he did here as well. I thought he was definitely really great. And then Larry, the owner, I'm sure we're definitely going to get more with him, but we just didn't get a ton here. They did do a very good job of setting up two things. One, the lachrymose leeches. That's definitely going to come back into play, as well as Hurricane Herman. What is Hurricane Herman? How's this going to cause everything? And how did Aunt Josephine fake her death? She's obviously not dead now. We know that she's still out there. What's going on? We don't really know what the suicide note's all about. I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I actually did watch the second part of The Wide Window. I'm not gonna tell you what happens, but overall, guys, I thought this was a good introduction to the show. Definitely, to this episode. I thought it was the weakest entry so far, but I still definitely did enjoy it. It was very exposition heavy. We got more of a sense what was going on. I just felt this episode was a bit, slow, and we didn't have really as much going on as some of the other episodes have, but I definitely am looking forward to part 2, which I've already watched. I'm just gonna, I've got a review for you guys, but I am gonna give Sears Unfortunate Events Season 1, Episode 5, The Wide Window Part 1, a 3.5 out of 5 or a B. So overall, guys, most of you guys thought of this episode. Love to your thoughts on it. I really did enjoy this episode overall. I don't want you guys to think I didn't like this episode. I just felt that because of how great the other episodes have been, this one just didn't hold up as much. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be either for, actually, it will be for Wide Window Part 2, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.